What if their silence wasn't an accident, but a message you were meant to hear? Have you ever had someone slowly fade out of your life, not with a fight, not with an explanation, but with a deafening silence? One moment you're exchanging laughs, planning your weekend, talking like everything is fine. The next, nothing. No reply, no calls, no energy. It's as if they vanished, like you never mattered. But let me ask you this, what if that silence wasn't random? What if it wasn't about them being busy or needing space? What if it was calculated, intentional, a quiet message they hoped you wouldn't decode? Because here's the truth that most people never say out loud. When someone starts to ignore you, it's rarely by accident. It's a decision. And that decision? It says more about them than it ever did about you. They won't explain it. They won't admit it. And they certainly won't give you closure. They'll just vanish. Disappear into the background, leaving you with questions you never asked for and silence you never agreed to. And the most brutal part, it feels personal, even when it isn't. Some people walk away when they've taken all they needed. Others disappear when your growth begins to reflect their own stagnation. And some were never really with you to begin with. So what do you do when people cut you off? Do you chase them? Beg for answers? Wait in limbo? No. You learn the most powerful lesson of all. You don't take it personally. You don't give their silence a voice in your worth. You understand it. You rise above it. And you move forward. Because that silence you were given, it's a revelation. So today we're diving deep into why people ghost, vanish, and drift, and what it truly means when they do. Stay with me until the end, because the last truth I'll share could shift your entire mindset about relationships, rejection, and self-worth. But before we unravel the wisdom, let me take you into the story of a man named Ethan, a story you'll never forget. The Candle and the Wind. The story of Ethan. Ethan was that kind of person, the guy who lit up the room when he walked in, genuine, kind-hearted, always willing to lend a hand. If you needed help moving, he was there. If you needed advice, he listened. He wasn't just liked, he was needed. But then, things changed. One by one, people began drifting away. Texts left on read, calls went unanswered, plans cancelled last minute. The warmth of his friendships slowly cooled into something distant, awkward, unfamiliar. At first, Ethan told himself what we all tell ourselves. They're just busy. They're probably going through something. It's nothing personal. But night after night, that inner voice grew louder. Why are they ignoring me? That question followed him everywhere, until one day, consumed by frustration, Ethan decided to visit someone who'd always guided him with wisdom. Mr. Harris, a retired psychologist known for helping people see beneath the surface. Sitting across from the old man, Ethan sighed, the pain clear in his eyes. "Sir," he said, "I don't get it. I haven't changed how I treat them. I'm still me. But people who once called me family now act like I'm invisible. What did I do wrong?" Mr. Harris didn't speak right away. Instead, he handed Ethan a candle and a match. "Light this," he said. Ethan struck the match and watched the flame bloom quietly. It flickered with life, soft and steady, casting a gentle glow across the room. "Now," Mr. Harris instructed, "bring it to the open window." Ethan did, and within seconds a gust of wind blew the flame out. The old man leaned back and simply said, "That, my boy, is why people ignore you." Ethan blinked. "I don't understand." Harris smiled. "A small flame only survives when it's sheltered, but when it burns too bright, it invites the wind. Your light made them uncomfortable." And in that moment, Ethan understood. People weren't avoiding him because he had failed them. They were avoiding him because he had grown beyond them. See, the brighter you become, the more your light exposes the shadows in others. You used to be on their level, predictable, comfortable, manageable. But now, you've evolved, and growth threatens those who remain stagnant. Your progress reminds them of their procrastination. Your peace triggers their chaos. Your clarity shines a light on their confusion. And instead of rising with you, they pull away from you. Because it's easier to avoid the mirror than to face it. That night, Ethan made a decision. A quiet one. A powerful one. He stopped chasing explanations. He stopped shrinking to fit rooms he'd outgrown. He stopped apologizing for becoming someone others weren't ready to meet. And maybe that's the decision you need to make too. This is where it begins, not ends. So the next time someone ghosts you, cuts you off, or fades out, pause. Don't panic. Don't beg. Don't handle. Was your light too bright? Were you too kind? Too consistent? Too focused? If so, good. Because the truth is, people who can't sit in your light will always run back to their darkness. But you don't dim. You don't chase shadows. You protect your flame. You build a fire so steady, so unshakable that it warms everyone who values it and burns through everything that doesn't. So let them go. Let them be uncomfortable. Let their silence echo. Because you weren't meant to shrink. You were meant to rise. And that's just the beginning. He stopped feeling guilty for outgrowing those who were content with standing still. And with that quiet decision, something remarkable happened. Peace arrived. Not the kind of peace that comes with answers, but the deeper kind. The kind that comes from no longer needing them. You see, Ethan realized he wasn't being abandoned. He was simply rising. The truth is hard to swallow, but necessary to grow. People don't always distance themselves because you've wronged them. They often pull away because your evolution forces them to face their own stagnation. You, in your quiet self-betterment, have become a mirror. And that reflection unsettles them. A candle that burns too bright doesn't just light the room, it unsettles the wind. So don't dim your flame just to keep people comfortable in their darkness. Don't lower your frequency just to stay relatable, because those who refuse to grow will always be uncomfortable around someone who does. Now, before we move into the first insight that explains why people disappear, if you find meaning in this message, if you've ever felt unseen for simply trying to become more, subscribe and turn on notifications. Let this be your space to rise unapologetically. All right, let's begin. Number 1. They're testing your reaction. Let's talk about a hidden, manipulative behavior that many overlook: strategic silence. Have you ever had someone seem completely engaged with you, texting, calling, laughing, only to go silent without warning? One day, they're warm and connected. The next, ice cold. No replies. No effort. Just an empty space where their presence used to be. At first glance, it might seem like they lost interest, but in some cases, it's not disinterest at all. It's a tactic. They're not pulling away because they don't care. They're doing it to see if you do. It's a test designed to measure your emotional dependence, to calculate how much you're willing to chase, to see if they can still control the rhythm of your emotions. They want to know, will you notice their silence? Will you panic? Will you double text, over-explain, or beg for answers? Because if you do, they win. They've successfully pulled you into their game. Your reaction becomes their power. Your over-explaining becomes their leverage. And now, they hold the rope, and you're tugging for emotional connection. Imagine this as a game of tug-of-war. They grip one end of the rope tightly, but then suddenly they let go. Not to walk away for good, but to watch what you'll do. Will you fall forward, desperate to re-engage, or will you simply let go too? Here's the secret. If you drop the rope and step back in silence, you win, because there's no game without a player, no control without reaction. And this is where ancient Stoic wisdom comes in. The Stoics taught, he who needs the least from others holds the most power. True power isn't in your ability to chase or convince. It's in your ability to remain unmoved, to stay grounded in your self-worth even when others withdraw theirs. Because when you stop chasing, stop over-explaining, and stop trying to prove you matter, you become untouchable, unshakable. I'll tell you a story from personal experience. There was someone in my life who would always act distant the moment I got busy or focused on myself. I used to think it was a coincidence. Maybe they were stressed, or something was going on. But then I noticed the pattern. Every time I pulled back just slightly to focus on work, on goals, on self-care, they'd retreat. No replies, no messages, just cold distance. Like they were punishing me for prioritizing myself. One day I decided to test the situation. I didn't chase. I didn't send a follow-up text. I didn't ask, is something wrong? I gave them nothing. And just like that, days later they reappeared. Friendly again, engaged. Like the cold shoulder never happened. That's when I realized it wasn't about me. It was about control. They weren't seeking connection. They were seeking validation. My silence took away their power. So how do you handle this? First, recognize the signs. If someone constantly withdraws to see how you'll react, it's not an accident. It's emotional manipulation, even if it's subtle. Second, don't bite the bait. Don't respond with desperation. Don't mirror their insecurity with neediness. Respond with stillness. Respond with boundaries. And lastly, remember this. The people who truly care about you will never make you guess. They won't test your love. They'll reciprocate it, openly, consistently, and with sincerity. Because real connection doesn't need to be proven. It's felt. And if someone makes you jump through hoops just to keep their attention, they were never interested in a relationship. Only in control. Walk away from that test and you pass with power. Number 2. They no longer benefit from you. Let's move into another difficult truth, the one that stings the most. People often stay in your life as long as your presence benefits them, as long as you're useful, as long as you offer something, attention, resources, validation, emotional support. They stick around. But the moment you shift your energy inward, the moment your growth stops feeding their needs, they vanish. And here's the brutal part. They won't even tell you. They'll just disappear. No goodbyes, no explanation, just distance. Because to them, you weren't a person, you were a resource, a source of energy. And when that energy stopped serving them, they moved on. But this isn't about you doing something wrong. This is about what happens when you evolve beyond your old roles. When you stop being the emotional crutch, when you stop playing the helper, the rescuer, the fixer. And when that moment comes, expect resistance, expect withdrawal, expect silence. Because now, you're no longer predictable. You're no longer easy to manipulate. And that scares them. But don't shrink back. Don't regress to make them feel comfortable again, because your growth isn't the problem. Their refusal to grow with you is. Let's pause here, and in the next part, we'll unpack the deeper truths behind these behaviors and how to build unshakable inner peace in the face of them. Because while people may disappear from your life, your purpose, your peace, and your progress must remain. Let's keep rising. So why do people disappear the moment your energy stops benefiting them? It's a painful realization, but one that Ethan and many of us eventually face. It's not always about you, it's about what you gave. And when the giving stops, so do they. So they. Number 2 continued. They no longer benefit from you. Have you ever had someone go from warmth and closeness to absolute coldness, almost overnight? One day they're messaging you with excitement, making plans, laughing at your jokes. The next day, nothing. No texts, no calls, no sign they ever cared. You sit there replaying every word, every moment, wondering, what did I do wrong? But here's the brutal truth. Some people were never truly there for you. They were there for what you offered. Maybe it was your emotional support, your unwavering reliability, your resources, your encouragement, your attention, your time. Or maybe it was just the way you made them feel important. But the moment they stop gaining something from your presence, they vanish. And worse, they vanish without a word. No warning, no explanation, just gone. Why? Because you were a source, a plug. Think of yourself like a power outlet. When people are depleted, they come to you to recharge. They plug in to draw energy, your love, your presence, your insight. And as long as they're drawing power, they stick around. But the moment they feel charged up or find another outlet more convenient, they unplug. Silently, casually, sometimes even without looking back. It's not that they were ever committed to you. They were committed to their need for you. That's why their disappearance hits so hard. It feels personal. But in reality, it's transactional. You were a temporary solution to their emotional shortfall. And this is where Stoic wisdom offers clarity. Epictetus once said, "Attach yourself to what is true, not to what is temporary." Let that sink in. Don't anchor your self-worth to people who only show up when it serves them. Don't confuse temporary attention with lasting connection. Because real ones, they stay. Not because you're giving, not because they need something, but because they value you, who you are, not what you offer. I remember someone in my life who seemed genuinely invested in our friendship. They called often, sent messages, asked questions, laughed with me. On the surface, it felt real. But in hindsight, every conversation followed a pattern. They needed advice, they needed comfort, they needed a favor, and I gave because that's who I was. Someone who shows up. But one day I pulled back, Not out of spite, but out of curiosity. I didn't initiate the texts. I didn't offer support unless they asked. I wanted to see if they'd reach out simply to check in, without needing anything. Days passed, then weeks. Silence, the calls stopped, the messages vanished, and just like that, the illusion shattered. They weren't my friend. They were using me as a convenience, a vending machine for emotional support, and the moment I stopped giving, they stopped showing up. So how do you deal with people like this? Step 1, recognize the signs. If someone only contacts you when they need something, pay attention. If their affection disappears the moment your usefulness fades, that's not a friend. That's a transaction in disguise. Step 2, stop chasing. If someone pulls away the second you stop pouring energy into them, let them go. Don't chase closure. Don't beg for answers, because the truth is clear in their absence. They were only there for the benefits, not for the bond. Step 3, invest wisely. Place your energy where it's returned. Real relationships aren't built on exchanges. They're built on mutual care, consistent presence, and genuine respect. At the end of the day, not everyone who walks with you is meant to walk forever. Some were seasonal, some were situational, and some were simply opportunistic. But don't take it personally. Take it as a lesson. Because the ones who stay, the ones who still check in when you're not at your best, who show up when there's nothing to gain, those are the ones who were always meant to be part of your circle. And when you find them, hold them close. They are rare. Number 3, they're influenced by others. Now let's explore something just as frustrating and often more confusing. What happens when someone changes how they treat you? Not because of something you did, but because of what they heard. One day, they're warm, present, affectionate. The next, cold, distant, suspicious. You check in, you ask if something's wrong. They say, it's nothing. But you can feel it. The energy has shifted. The warmth is gone. What happened? Chances are, someone got in their ear. Let's continue. Some people don't walk away because of who you are. They walk away because of what someone else said you were. And sadly, they never stop to ask you the truth. Number 3 continued. They're influenced by others. Have you ever felt someone's energy shift toward you without warning? One day they're texting you back within seconds, tagging you in memes, making plans. The next, cold, distant, barely present, and you're left staring at your screen, confused and hurt, wondering, what just happened? Here's the hard truth. Not everyone forms their own opinions. Some people let others think for them. They're not rooted in their own experience. They're swayed by whispers, rumors, and second-hand judgments, opinions borrowed from people who might not even know you. Instead of coming to you directly, they listen to shadows. They absorb doubts like a sponge and start seeing you through someone else's distorted lens. Not based on truth, not based on experience, but based on suggestion. It's like watching someone go from being your friend to being a stranger, all because someone planted a seed of doubt they never bothered to question. This is the behavior of the weak-minded. Imagine a leaf in the wind. A sturdy tree stays rooted no matter how strong the gust. But a fragile leaf? It gets carried wherever the wind blows, twisting, turning, lost to direction. People like that? They're the leaves. They don't have inner stability. They float between opinions, between loyalties, between truths that aren't even theirs. And when you meet someone like that, it stings, because you thought they were grounded, thought they had your back. But in reality, their loyalty was conditional, their respect was superficial, their presence was circumstantial. This is where Stoic wisdom lights the path. As Epictetus might remind us, a mind that can be easily swayed was never truly yours to begin with. A strong person seeks truth, not whispers. They ask, they listen, they verify. They give you the benefit of the doubt because they respect you enough to want clarity. But someone who lets gossip define you, they were never your people. That's not a loss, it's a revelation. I remember a time in my own life when someone close, someone I trusted, began acting strangely. They pulled away, stopped inviting me to things, stopped showing up in ways they always had before. At first I brushed it off. Life gets busy, right? But then I heard something through the grapevine, a rumor, a lie, something I never said, never did. And they believed it, without a question, without a conversation. Just like that, they were gone. I had two options. One, chase them down and plead my case. Two, or let their silence be their answer. I chose silence. No explanations, no defense, no long texts proving my innocence. Why? Because if someone's loyalty is that fragile, I don't want it. Months later they came back, apologizing, explaining that they'd learned the truth, that the person who turned them against me had done the same to others. By then I had already healed. I had already outgrown needing their approval. You see, real relationships survive storms. Fake ones blow away at the first gust of drama. How do you handle situations like this? Step 1. Don't explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. If they don't respect you enough to ask you directly, then you owe them nothing. Silence is your power. Step 2. Let people reveal their loyalty. A real friend won't let someone else's words define their view of you. They'll come to you, not go around you. Step 3. Be grateful. Yes, grateful. Because if someone can be turned against you that easily, they were never really yours to begin with. Their exit is an act of clarity, a door closing so better people can enter. At the end of the day, you don't lose real ones. You lose illusions. Let the weak drift away. And surround yourself with people who think for themselves, who choose connection over gossip and truth over noise. Number 4. You've stopped playing by their rules. Now let's talk about what really happens when you stop being who someone expects you to be and start being who you are. The shift is subtle. First, they stop texting as often. Then they stop including you in plans. Eventually, they act cold, even resentful. You're left wondering, did I do something wrong? But if you look closer, you'll notice something else. You changed first. You started setting boundaries. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped playing by their rules. And that's what changed the game. Some people only remain in your life as long as they can control you, how you think, how you act, how you respond. They thrive on your compliance. But the moment you stop tolerating their passive-aggressive guilt trips, the moment you stop feeding into their emotional manipulation, the moment you stop tiptoeing around their moods, they lose control. And instead of adjusting to your new standards, they vanish. Not because you hurt them, but because they can't handle you anymore. You were never an equal to them. You were a puppet, meant to react the way they needed, when they needed. But when the strings snapped, so did their interest. Let's pick up right where we left off. When you stop playing by their rules, when you no longer move according to their emotional strings, their interest fades. But that isn't your loss, it's your liberation. Number 4 continued. You've stopped playing by their rules. Picture this, a puppet hanging in the air, each limb controlled by a string. As long as those strings are intact, the puppeteer controls everything, the movements, the expressions, even the direction the puppet turns. But what happens when those strings are cut? The puppet no longer dances to their tune. It no longer responds on command. The show is over. And instead of accepting that, the puppeteer simply drops it and walks away. That's exactly how manipulators behave. They're not interested in you. They're interested in the control they have over you. And the moment you stop reacting the way they expect, they disappear. Not because you've changed, but because you've evolved past their reach. This is the deeper truth. Control was always the foundation, not connection, not care, not love. And here's where Stoic wisdom becomes essential. The price of independence is the loss of those who wanted you dependent. True independence, mental, emotional, and spiritual, comes with a cost. You won't be liked by everyone, especially not by those who only valued your ability to obey, agree, and conform. And that's okay, because people who genuinely respect you will adjust to your boundaries. They'll grow with you. They'll accept that you're not here to be managed, you're here to be. But those who were only around for what they could control, they'll vanish. And when they do, don't grieve the loss. Celebrate it. I remember someone from my own life, someone close, someone I thought understood me, but slowly their behavior began to shift. Anytime I disagreed with them, they'd guilt-trip me. If I set a boundary, they'd call me difficult or cold. And for a long time, I played along. I softened my tone, I bit my tongue, I shrank to maintain the peace. But peace at the cost of self-respect isn't peace, it's captivity. Then one day I stopped. No dramatic speech, no fight, just silence. I didn't argue, I didn't explain. I stood firm. And their reaction? They disappeared. Not with a goodbye, not with a confrontation. Just a slow fade into silence. At first I questioned it. Did I push too hard? But then I realized something powerful. That was the moment I became free. Their presence in my life was never rooted in mutual respect. It was rooted in silent control. And once I stopped playing the role they cast me in, I no longer served their script. So how do you handle this? First, recognize the pattern. If someone only sticks around when they can manipulate your reactions, that's not love, that's leverage. Second, stop justifying yourself. The moment you stop explaining every decision and start acting on your truth, they lose power, and you gain peace. Third, let them leave. Yes, let them. Because their absence isn't a sign that you failed, it's a sign you're finally on the right path. At the end of the day, not everyone will cheer for your independence. And that's okay. The ones who disappear were never here for you. They were here for the version of you that pleased them. Let them go. And walk boldly in the direction of who you are becoming. Number 5. They feel intimidated by your growth. Now let's talk about something most people never expect. When you grow, when you start rising, evolving, improving yourself in quiet and powerful ways, some people will pull away. Not because you've wronged them, not because you've changed in a negative way, but because your progress shines a light on their stagnation. They liked you when you were on their level, predictable, familiar, easy to relate to. But now your growth makes them uncomfortable. Your improvement forces them to see everything they're not, everything they've refused to work for. And rather than face that discomfort, they choose distance. Not out of hate, but out of insecurity. Here's the truth. Some people would rather lose you than confront their own lack of growth. They don't despise your success. They despise what it reflects back at them. Let's put it in perspective. Imagine you and a friend hiking up a mountain. At first you're side by side, sharing laughs, stories, encouragement. The trail is light. The journey is equal. But as the path steepens, you start pushing harder. Your lungs burn, your muscles ache, but you climb. And what does your friend do? They slow down. They complain. They suggest turning back, and then in frustration they stop. They say something like, "You've changed." But what they really mean is, "I can't keep up." Instead of asking for help, instead of rising with you, they resent you for moving forward. And this is the point where the trail splits. Not the physical one, but the emotional and relational one. Because now your journey requires more than shared memories. It demands shared mindset, and not everyone can offer that. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your compass again. Don't expect people to understand your path when they've never walked your discipline. Growth creates distance, but that distance isn't always a loss. Sometimes it's a filter. The people who can't rise with you, they fall away. And as painful as that may feel at first, it's a sign that your path is working. You're no longer pretending. You're no longer shrinking. You're climbing. Let those who are intimidated fall back. Let those who are inspired catch up. But you don't wait. You keep rising, picking up from where we left off. Growth isn't a threat. It's a mirror. And when people start falling away as you rise, it's not always about you changing. Sometimes it's about what your change reflects back at them. Number 5 continued. They feel intimidated by your growth. Never shrink to keep others comfortable. Your progress isn't an insult, it's an invitation. An invitation for them to rise with you, to evolve alongside you, to step into a better version of themselves. But here's the thing, not everyone accepts the invitation. Your growth is not an attack, it's a revelation. It reveals who's genuinely with you, and who was only ever there as long as you stayed familiar. I had a friend once, let's call him David. We were tight, same goals, same schedule, same dreams. We'd train together, talk about ambitions, share wins and losses. For a while it felt like we were running side by side toward the same horizon. But then something shifted. I began diving deep into personal growth, reading more, thinking differently, setting higher standards. I became more intentional with my time, more focused in my habits, more serious about who I wanted to become. At first, David cheered me on. "That's amazing, man, keep it up." He said all the right things. But then his tone changed. The encouragement turned into subtle jokes. "Look at you now, Mr. Enlightened, too good for the rest of us." He'd laugh when he said it, but there was a sharpness behind the grin, a bite behind the smile. It wasn't just humour, it was discomfort masked as banter. Then came the distance. "You're too busy for me these days, huh?" He stopped making plans, stopped checking in. Conversations became shallow and short. And that's when I noticed he wasn't just stepping back, he was withdrawing. One day I brought it up, gently. "Hey man, I feel like something's shifted between us. What's going on?" He shrugged. "You've just changed." "I don't know, man. It feels like you're trying too hard." And that's when it hit me. I hadn't changed too much. I had just grown. He hadn't changed at all. Instead of rising with me, he froze. Instead of being inspired, he got intimidated. He didn't hate who I was becoming. He hated the reflection of who he wasn't. And rather than confront that discomfort, he distanced himself. So how do you handle situations like this? First, never shrink yourself to keep someone else comfortable. If your growth intimidates them, that's their inner battle, not yours. You weren't made to dim your light just because others are afraid to shine. Second, pay attention to energy shifts. If someone starts pulling away the moment you level up, they were never truly supporting your success. They were supporting your stagnation. Third, let them go. With peace, with grace. Not everyone is meant to walk every level of your journey with you. Some were only there for a season. And that's okay, because the people who are meant for your path, they won't just keep up. They'll challenge you to climb even higher. They'll hold you accountable. They'll cheer you on not only when it's easy, but when you're evolving into someone even you barely recognize yet. Number 6, you've exposed their true nature. Let's move deeper now. What happens when you stop tolerating dishonesty, manipulation, or selfish intentions? Some people vanish, not because you chased them away, but because they simply can't exist in the space you've created. A space that no longer entertains lies, tolerates fake loyalty, or makes room for half-truths. See, people who rely on deception operate like shadows. They only thrive in the dark, in silence, in secrecy, in your blind spots. And the moment you turn the light on, they run, because they're not ready to be seen. Here's the truth. When you expose someone's true nature, they only have 2 options: change or leave. They leave. It's easier to walk away than to face the damage they've caused. Easier to disappear than to confront their own selfishness or immaturity. Easier to blame you for changing than to admit they were never fully real to begin with. You didn't lose them. You saw them, clearly, and they couldn't handle it, because your clarity stripped away their control. Your awareness removed the mask, and suddenly they weren't just uncomfortable, they were exposed. Number 6 continued. You've exposed their true nature. Once you see someone for who they really are, there's no going back. It's like walking into a dimly lit room filled with shadows. At first, everything looks calm, harmless. You don't notice the dust, the clutter, the mess hidden in corners. But the moment you flip the light on, it all becomes clear. The chaos, the neglect, the truth. That's what happens when you finally shine the light of awareness on someone's behavior. When you stop brushing off the red flags, when you stop rationalizing the inconsistencies, when you stop playing dumb just to keep the peace. And in that moment, when the mask slips and you see what's been hidden all along, something inside you shifts. You can't unsee it. They didn't change. You just stopped allowing the manipulation. And trust me, they feel it. They'll say things like, "You've changed." But what they really mean is, you stopped letting me take advantage of you. They're not upset that you've grown. They're upset that you're no longer under their control. This is where Stoic wisdom cuts deep. The truth offends only those living a lie. People who are honest, who carry integrity, don't fear the truth, because they have nothing to hide. But those who thrive in the shadows, they fear exposure like fire fears water. I once had someone in my life who always played the victim. No matter the situation, somehow they were always the one being wronged. I defended them for years, stood by them, believed their stories, gave them the benefit of the doubt. But eventually the math stopped adding up. The timelines didn't make sense. Their stories started conflicting. I'd catch little lies here and there, just small things, but enough to raise a question. And one day, instead of ignoring the unease, I decided to confront it, calmly, directly. I asked simple questions. I held them accountable. Their response? Immediate defensiveness. Suddenly I was being too harsh. I was overthinking. I was not the same person anymore. And then, like clockwork, they vanished. No explanation. No apology. Just silence. Not because I hurt them, but because I no longer served them. Because once I stopped playing the role they'd written for me, I was no longer useful. No. So how do you deal with people like this? First, don't regret discovering the truth. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it stings. But truth is better than comfort built on a lie. You didn't lose something good. You lost the illusion of it. Second, let them go. If someone disappears the moment you stop tolerating their lies, manipulation, or emotional games, they were never real to begin with. Third, stand tall in your integrity. Real ones won't run from your honesty. They'll respect it, appreciate it, match it. The truth doesn't destroy genuine relationships, it only destroys the false ones. So let the liars flee. You're better off walking alone in truth than surrounded by people who only loved the version of you they could deceive. Number 7. It's a blessing in disguise. Now let's talk about something that feels like rejection, but is actually a gift in disguise. When people ignore you, it hurts. Let's not pretend it doesn't. That sudden silence, the messages that go unanswered, the absence that shows up without warning, it stings. Deeply. You sit with questions. What happened? What did I do? Why am I being shut out? But what if their silence wasn't a rejection? What if it was a filter? What if being ignored isn't a loss, but a form of divine clarity? See, people who suddenly disappear from your life, who stop responding, stop reaching out, and leave you hanging without closure, they're not taking something from you. They're revealing something to you. They were never truly meant to stay. Think of a tree in autumn. The leaves fall. Not because the tree is dying, but because it's preparing for new growth. It's shedding what's no longer needed to make space for what's next. Life is the same. Some people are like those leaves, meant to fall away when the season shifts. And while it's natural to grieve, to feel confused, to want answers, here's the Stoic truth. Do not grieve those who walked away. Be grateful they revealed themselves. If someone can so easily disappear from your life without explanation, without care, without even a final word, it says nothing about your worth. It speaks volumes about their inability to value you. I had a friend like that once. We were close, shared everything, always in contact, until suddenly we weren't. No argument, no fallout, just distance. At first, I felt responsible. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I should reach out, fix whatever this is, even if I don't know what it is. But something in me said, wait. So I waited. Days passed, then weeks, and slowly a realization crept in. I had always been the one keeping that connection alive. I was the one checking in, planning, reaching out, and when I stopped, they didn't even notice. That's when it hit me. I didn't lose a friend. I lost the illusion of one. And that silence? It was the answer I never thought I needed. So how do you handle this kind of silence? First, shift your mindset. Being ignored doesn't reflect your lack of value. It reflects their lack of depth. Second, don't chase people who choose to leave. If someone walks away without a word, they were never really present to begin with. Third, focus on those who stay. The people who belong in your life don't need constant reminders or proof of your worth. They just show up. Naturally, effortlessly. At the end of the day, silence is not your enemy. It's your compass. Because the ones who fade, they're making room for the ones who truly see you. If you found these words powerful, if you've ever felt that quiet shift when someone walked away and you found peace instead of pain, then this is your sign. Hit that like button, subscribe for more Stoic truths, and comment below. Their silence was my clarity. This is your path now, clear, quiet, unshakable. Let's keep rising together.